Welcome everybody to tonight's home clinic. A home clinic is where we grab one quality coach and he presents on one specific subject for you guys to enjoy, and he usually does that from home. If you guys have been enjoying this series and would like to see it continue, we want to ask that you would like and subscribe below. Those things certainly help us to grow and is kind of that feedback to say this is a good thing. Keep this coming. If you have a desire to present in the future, reach out to us on Twitter, DM us. That's at the Chief Pigskin. All right, without further ado, tonight's home clinic.
All right, welcome to another home clinic. I am Dylan Mack. I'm head coach at Elmwood Park High School, and I'm one of the videographers for Chief Pigskin. Today, I'm super excited to bring in Dub Maddox, the one and only, the creator of the R4 system, the guy who has filled my bookcase behind me with a plethora of stuff. Dub, thank you for coming on today.
Dylan, thanks for having me. Excited to always talk football. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Looking forward to talking some ball. Definitely in some of the crazy time we have here, and really looking forward to kind of getting into the swing of things now that school's starting to wind down for a lot of guys, and getting ready to get into a full swing of football. Right?
Absolutely. This break has been a good time to learn a lot. I've learned a lot getting on these types of calls and kind of do some self-assessment, and hopefully we all come out of this better coaches.
No, I totally agree. There's been a ton of great clinics out there, and the Chief Pigskin Home Clinic has been one of them. Dub, today you're going to talk about game planning and play calling, and I'm super psyched to listen to you talk about that. I've been a part of your website, a member of that as well, and there's a ton of stuff on there that I use weekly, and I've been using in the off season, and I'm sure you're going to dive into that. I'm guessing that's part of your game plan and play calling, so I don't want to steal too much of your thunder. So whenever you're ready, Coach, you could share your screen and let's get rolling.
Okay, all right, appreciate it, guys. I'll share my screen here and we'll get started. We're going to focus on just some of the things that I think what I really need is a first and second year play caller just early on in my career, things that I needed that I didn't have. And really this whole process and system was created out of just my deficiencies and my weaknesses and a lot of mistakes that I made. And early on as a play caller, what I learned is that I needed the ability. The first thing I needed is a common language that unified the staff and the players, where everyone could collectively see everything the same. We need to learn how to see space the same. And when we talk to our quarterbacks, one of the first questions I'll ask my quarterbacks early on in the season in our first couple meetings is I'll set them down and I'll have them try to define what open is to them. How do they know what open is? What does it look like? Paint a picture of that for me. What's your definition of that? And that answer will scare you as a coach when you hear kind of what they determine open is. Really, there is no frame of reference for them. They have no way to communicate it. So as coaches, what I learned was kind of grass reads early on. We did a lot of air raid stuff early on in my career, and throwing to grass, peeking deep. And what I found is those sweeping statements leave a lot of area for loose interpretation, and that can cost you, especially in big games. And so we really had to take a deep dive and try to frame out how do we teach spatial awareness to our coaches and players. And if you're in a staff room, you have these arguments every game plan weekend with your staff. One coach will see something totally different and think you need to run this play. This other coach is on the other end of the spectrum. And you have coaches with different years of experience, different conceptual ideas. So how do we eliminate all that clutter and noise and get everybody to see space the same? So that's really what the creation of R4 was to provide common frames of reference, to teach spatial awareness, to utilize those within the time frames that football operates within. And how do we develop a language that can get everyone on the same page? And so I'm going to kind of talk about some of those things today. And really, if you can see my screen here, I'll enlarge that. Basically, this slide sums up a lot of what I'm trying to explain. If you look at the FedEx logo is considered one of the best logos in marketing history. And the key to that being one of the best is that it's the hidden secret within the logo is that there's a arrow that pops out when it's available between the E and the X. And that arrow represents, fast delivery, forward thinking, always in motion, going to get your product on time. And that concept is called negative space. Designers that create unseen pictures from visible frames of reference, like you've seen maybe the illusion pictures that you can see it. You look at a glob of these clusters of shapes, and you'll see like maybe a rabbit appear within it, or you've seen those kinds of things. That's negative space. So it's using frames of reference to allow people to see things that others can't. And so that's what I felt like I needed as a coach early in my career, when I was around a lot of great, head coaches, been around a lot of great football coaches. And what I was always enamored by as a young coach was, how are they able to watch, a 3 to 4 second clip of film, or to be on the field and immediately know where to go, where to attack, where the hidden space was, where the open space was. And a lot of times when I asked them, how do you know that's there? How do you know that plays the best? They had a hard time explaining their process. And what happens is when you talk to experts in any field, a lot of times they can't explain to you in a layman's terms on how they're able to do this. It's just been through years of just experience, of trial and error. Some people are just have a natural ability to recognize space. And so what I want to do is try to take those expert talents and traits and try to unpack that. How can we teach that to everybody? And so this negative space idea is a way we do that. So if we can't define frames of reference on the football field, there's no way we can teach pattern recognition. There's no way we can develop intuition. And that's what all great quarterbacks and play callers have. It's the ability to predict the future. The key is they know what to look for. They know how to eliminate the noise. So how do we create that for our staff? This is what R4 provides for us. So I'm going to kind of take you through some tools that we developed to teach spatial awareness. So the big tool here that you'll see on the screen is what we call the HALO. And the HALO is an acronym. It stands for hard deck, which you see here. And I'll define the hard deck more specifically in a minute. The A in HALO stands for apex. The L in HALO stands for the line of center. And then the O in HALO stands for the outside space. Those are the 4 critical frames of reference that we as play callers need to understand when we're breaking down a defense. We need to know how they're lining up in relation to those frames of reference, and that dictates where the open space is. Once the hard deck is established, if you look above it, we divide the vertical space into 5 vertical tubes. And the reason why we break vertical space down into 5 vertical tubes is because in American football, you can release 5 receivers down the field if you in fact want to. So that's the space that the defense has at a maximum. They have to be able to defend vertically is 5 vertical tubes, 5 eligible receivers. So we label the tubes, middle of the field tubes, seam tubes, and then the hole tubes are the outside tubes. And so that allows us to break the field down into basically compartments that allow us now to see the negative space. So I'm going to go more in depth on each frame of reference, but before, is there any questions there that you have just on the HALO tool that we use to break the field down into compartments?
No, Coach. I love the HALO. We use it with my guys, and they really, really excelled once started to break down the field using that.
Okay, so the hard deck, for coaches that have not heard that before, it's an aviation term. Obviously, if you've seen Top Gun, you understand that. But it's an aviation term that fighter pilots use, and when aircraft flies below the hard deck, they're now susceptible to get shot down by anti-aircraft missiles. And so we brought that idea into the football field, meaning that if defensive backs are underneath that hard deck line, they're susceptible now to get beat deep vertically by receivers. So think of your receivers as the anti-aircraft missiles. Think of the defenders as the planes. And so that hard deck line is set at a minimum at 7 yards. Because the high school world, the slowest receivers that you're probably going to have at a minimum should be able to get at least 7 yards of vertical distance in 1.8 seconds. And 1.8 seconds is when the last step of the drop of the quarterback hits in a standard shotgun drop back timeline. So we use that timeline in that vertical distance that a receiver can get to establish the point at which he gets into vertical space versus flat space. So anything over the hard deck is considered vertical space. Anything under the hard deck is considered flat space. And so that's an important frame of reference to understand as a quarterback and a play caller, to know when the vertical space is available. Because if we have vertical space available, we want to try to attack that. We're trying to generate explosive plays. So that frame of reference really allows us as a coach and quarterback to know when to be aggressive, when to take risk, when vertical space is available. And before that, anytime I called the post, the quarterback is, the post concept, everybody has a concept with a post in it. Anytime I called that in a game before this, the quarterback's throwing the post no matter what. It doesn't matter if it's triple covered. And that was frustrating me as a coach, getting in arguments with a 16-year-old, because I'd say, why'd you throw the post? He said, well, it was open. And I would say, no, it wasn't. Well, who's right? If I haven't established a frame of reference that we can both operate from, then he's right because he has the ball in his hand. So using that hard deck allowed us to clear up that when that vertical space is in our favor, and how to now take that favor and be more risky when it's available. So the hard deck is a key frame of reference we use in game planning. And below the next frame of reference is the apex. That's the midpoint between the end man on the line of scrimmage and the next eligible receiver. And that frame of reference is used heavily in RPOs. So when that outside linebacker, we call him the dog, some people call him the Sam or the star, when he's inside that apex line or comes inside the apex line post snap, usually our RPOs outside are available. So we use that apex line heavily in RPOs. The line of center is used in the run game to determine where the man advantage is in our favor, or how to scheme a run play to create man advantage. And then the outside space is, you may call it the flat space. We refer to it as outside space because it has both run and route properties. We can throw out there, but we can also attack the outside space with jet sweeps, toss sweeps, some screens. And so that's why we classify that as both run and route space. So once all those field spaces are compartmentalized and defined, we can now go through it and start to establish where the open space is. We call open space pre-snap, from a pre-snap perspective, bubbles. Bubbles are any of those compartments that are void of a defender. That means there's no defender in that space. So that now gives me kind of a foothold as a game planner and a play caller to start from. And that's really, where we need to, I think, I need some sort of baseline every weekend when I'm game playing to know where to start. And so this gives me a place to start. So from a play calling perspective and a game planning perspective, I want to first find, do I have any spaces that I can immediately attack that doesn't have a defender in it? And so that's what these bubbles present. So now what we can do is put the halo over a formation. Let's say we're breaking down game film, and then we can go through the halo and we can place a bubble in any compartment that doesn't have a defender. So we start in the boundary hole vertical tube first. There's no defender in that tube, so I place a bubble there. You can see that this safety right here, he's really above the hard deck, so he is in this boundary seam tube. So we're going to X that out just visually, or we'll actually maybe, when we're early on, we'll actually draw an X there just so we can create that mental map. And that means that has a defender in it, so that is not a space of opportunity immediately. So we go to the next middle of field tube. You can see that this safety is over the hard deck, so that space is capped. That's the word we use for covered. You can see the dog linebacker is outside the number 2 receiver here. They're in kind of a stubby or special coverage, but he is below the hard deck. So this vertical seam tube to the field is uncapped, as well as the whole vertical tube to the field. It's uncapped as well because the corner is below the hard deck. So that gives us 3 bubbles of vertical opportunity pre-snap. So if I'm looking at calling a intermediate concept or maybe a play action, those are the tubes that I'd want to try to get routes into that space. So that kind of starts my thought process on, okay, what concepts do I want to call here? And then as I go below the hard deck, I look at the outside space to the left. I have 3 immediate threats to the left. They only have 2 defenders for those 3 immediate threats because this safety is above the hard deck. So what I have to ask myself is a question: what route or concept can I use to get a receiver into that space? Maybe it's just a simple hitch or stick route. So that would be a starting point for me in the play calling or game planning process. So I would look at it to try to use something to attack that space initially. Okay, so I'm just going around that halo visually, and I'm just thinking about, okay, what are the concepts that I have that can get receivers into that space? When I get to the run box, what you need to understand about the run box is most defensive coordinators are going to be gap sound in the run box from a pre-snap perspective, meaning that there's very rarely going to be bubbles of space there. So what you're going to have to do when you want to run the ball into those spaces, because we have to run the ball, you need to learn how to scheme bubbles and create bubbles. So that is all about plays. And I'm going to talk to you here in a few slides later on how we scheme space advantage into those run boxes. But pre-snap, they have the man advantage there. So there is no pre-snap bubbles of space, weak side or strong side of this formation. If you look, this is a tight end trips formation, a nub set. If you look, there's no immediate threat out here outside the tight end. So that is not an immediate space I can attack. So there is not a bubble there. Okay, so once you make that visual rotation around the halo, and I use this same process on the field. When I'm on the field, I always start in the boundary hole tube and kind of locate that boundary safety, because he kind of tells you everything. And I always make a visual rotation around that halo to kind of confirm what I'm seeing and to make sure those spaces are there. And I think the thing that coaches need to understand is when you create these maps and you practice drawing this up on paper and you practice watching film in this manner, you create a visual scan strategy that really allows you to accelerate your decision making, and you start to see those negative spaces pop up. It's kind of like this FedEx logo. When I see the logo now on a plane or a shirt or a truck driving down the road, my eyes automatically go to this arrow because I know it's there. I know the frames of reference. And what starts to happen when you use this Halo tool and you start to teach it to your coaches and players, they'll start to see that negative space pop up as well. And it really gives me a lot of confidence as a play caller to trust the plays I'm calling and to really just refine that game planning process and just make it tighter. Okay, any questions so far in just that Halo process and how we use that to kind of see the pre-snap space?
No, you're good, Coach.
Okay, the thing you have to understand is that this is going to change post-snap, and so we'll talk, as we watch film, we'll talk about how players will react post-snap to different things. The beautiful thing about the frames of reference is it allows us to see how these post-snap movements occur. In the absence of those frames of reference, there's a lot of gray area, and we don't like gray area. So having these frames of reference and seeing the post-snap movements in and out of those spaces helps us confirm if those plays are going to hold up or if we need to look at a different play. All right, the next thing we go to, so what we need to understand, there's the visual rotation. What we need to understand is, and I'm going to kind of highlight this, the beautiful thing about the Halo and the vertical tubes is it defines the compartments of space, and it allows me as a coach to understand that at a minimum, there's always 4 bubbles of space that are going to be available to me as a play caller. And the reason why is this: if we go through these spaces, okay, and we count them up, there's 5 vertical tubes, okay? So no matter what formation we're in, there's always going to be 15 spaces the defense has to defend. So there's 5 vertical tubes here. If you look to the left, there's 3 immediate threats to the left. So that's 8 total spaces that can be attacked. All right. Now, if we look inside the run box to the left, we start to count gaps. So in the run box, space becomes gaps. So if you look to the left here, I have a 2-man lineman surface that creates 3 gaps in A, B, and C. So that's 3 additional spaces. So that's 11 total spaces the defense has to defend now. And if I look to the right of the line of center, I have a 3-man surface, which creates 4 gaps. So I add that. Okay, how many do I have now? 11 plus 4 is 15. So no matter what formation you use, there's always 15 spaces the defense has to defend. If I bring this receiver inside the apex and maybe line him up as a tight end, I lose an immediate threat to the left, but I gain a run gap. So while the run gaps might increase, the immediate threats outside are going to decrease. So at a minimum, there's always 15. It's just the formation will change where those space advantages are. So that was a huge, just understanding for me as a play caller to know, okay, I want to find where these 4 bubbles of space are, no matter what formation. I know there's always 4, and that's kind of my starting point. And I think once I understood kind of my baseline and my foothold and my starting point, I was able to really eliminate a lot of clutter and confusion and really be more efficient in the game planning process. Okay, after we have defined the bubbles from our pre-snap perspective, the next thing we want to look at is how to determine man advantage to each side of space. Because, for example, if I want to run the ball, there's not going to usually be bubbles there unless you're playing an Iowa State 3-safety defense. Iowa State, they're going to give you the illusion you have a bubble of space in the run box. They're going to play everyone outside or on the apex line on the hard deck. And then post snap, those guys are going to fly into the run box, and immediately those bubbles are going to go away. So those frames of reference allow us to determine what schemes to do when we're playing that type of defense. Now, in the run box, when I don't have any pre-snap bubbles, I got to use man advantage to scheme a bubble or to create space. So in this particular clip, we'll use a national championship clips here when Clemson played Alabama a few years ago. If you look at the line of center there, you have the apex, there's the hard deck and the vertical tubes. What we do when we're in the run box is we want to find where the man advantage is in our favor or how to scheme man advantage to neutral. So if we look to the left, there's a two-man surface here to the left. So that means I have an A, a B, and a C gap. That's 3 spaces the defense has to defend. So they need 3/2 to have a +1 man advantage. That eliminates the bubble. So they have 3 players over 2. They have 1 for each gap. So there's no bubble of space there. The defense has a +1 advantage. Okay. So if I want to run weak, all right, which I might have to do, all right, I've got to neutralize that man advantage. So how do we do that? Well, we use 3 words to help us memorize, okay, the different scheme strategies we need to neutralize that. It's fake, flow, and flood. Okay, so what's a fake scheme strategy? Fake means that we're going to read one of these defenders. So, for example, let's say we're going to put the back here to the right or to the left and run a kind of a midline zone, and we're going to read this in. So that is a fake strategy. It means we're going to try to get him to choose to close on the tailback and use the quarterback like on a zone read. So for a moment in time, that's going to neutralize the man advantage. We can get 2 for these 2 and read him. That would be a fake strategy. So we create a bubble by doing that. Another scheme strategy is using flow. It's the flow of the tailback across the center line. It could be the flow of the center across the center line. It could be a jet sweep or a motion. Say we have a jet sweep here. We have a receiver coming across, and that flow for a moment in time is going to take that will linebacker across the center line, and for a moment in time now we have a 2 for 2 there. So that is an example of a flow scheme strategy. And then a flood scheme strategy is bringing 1 or more defender across the center line. So maybe we're going to run like a GT, or not a GT, but maybe like a guard and a tight end swab counter. So we're going to bring 2 guys across the center line. We'll block the center back, and so for a moment in time, that gives us 3 for 3. So that's a flood scheme. Okay, we're just defining what coaches. I mean, this is not anything new. Coaches know how to use these schemes to neutralize man advantage, but what we're trying to do is define that strategy to help us get there faster. And so fake, flow, flood are 3 ways that I can neutralize man advantage to the side. And a lot of times you can combine those. You can use a zone read with a jet sweep motion, and that just makes that run play even more deadly. So I think the best run schemes use fake, flow, and flood to neutralize man advantage. So that's some things you're going to look at when you're teaching young coaches or players, hey, here's what we're trying to do. Okay, if you look to the right here, the man advantage is neutral. So what that means is we have a bubble here. Anytime man advantage is neutral, there's a bubble in that run box. Anytime you see a bubble in the run box as a coach, you need to ask yourself, okay, why is this here? Because defensive coordinators aren't stupid. All right, there's a reason why they're giving you that bubble. Either they think that their 3 guys, which in Alabama's case, they might be correct, are better than your 3, then they're going to give you that bubble and gain the man advantage elsewhere. Another reason why they might be giving you a bubble, kind of like Iowa State, they're going to give you the illusion that bubble's there, but they have game planned and they have worked the technique of those players. When you see run action, you're going to fly into the box and be aggressive and take that away. So a lot of times defense coordinators may invite you into a space knowing you're going to go there, but they have some post-snap tool they're using to take it away. So you need to ask yourself those questions and watch film to check your work and make sure that run play is going to hold up. So I think that's the thing that great play callers do and the great game planners do is they ask themselves the right questions and they know what questions to ask. The R4 system allows kind of pre-plans those questions for you as a checklist to make sure your plays are going to hold up. Any questions on man advantage?
Hey, Coach, what do you do with the center then?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the center. And if I understand your question right, what you got to understand is that any player on the center line is a man advantage player. Okay? He's a man. So the center's a man advantage player. So, for example, let's say I'm running just a zone scheme to the right. He comes off the center line. Well, that's another way to gain the man advantage or to neutralize it. So, for example, let's say I'm running like maybe it's a bash scheme where, the quarter, we're going to, or use the running back as misdirection left, and it's a quarterback run to the right. So we're gonna just zone up, okay, do a zone combo here, using this center, and once he flows across the center line, he is now a +1 player to that side. So essentially, I can gain the man advantage in my favor. I can use this action with the back away to hold the backside linebacker, and for a moment in time now, I'm going to have 2 for 2 here, and I have 2 for 1, and he's probably going to work to a linebacker or safety that shows up in the box. So the center is a man advantage player. Conversely, if we look at this next slide, okay, when the defense here has a linebacker on the center line, he's in like a 0-0, or maybe they have a nose guard over the center, that's a man advantage player for the defense as well. So I always take a minute, like 5 good minutes whenever I'm talking about this, to really stress, as a play caller and a coach, you have to understand the power of the line of center. And you got to make sure you game plan that into your play calls. And what I mean by that is this. If we look at Alabama now, they had Derrick Henry this year, that particular year, but you saw him tear up the Patriots this last season of the playoffs. You can see that Clemson made sure they were +2 to both sides. And I'm going to show you how we get to +2 here. If you look at Alabama's formation, they're in a 2-man surface to the left, but they also have a fullback, which is an additional gap. So there's 3 offensive players to the left of the center line, which creates 4 gaps. So at a minimum, the defense needs 4 for those 3, and they have those there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. But they also have a linebacker on the center line. All right, we have to include him into that count to the left, because once he sees run flow weak here, he's going to work across that center line and be a +1 player. So that's essentially +2, because we have to include that linebacker to both sides. So what you have to ask yourself this question when you're game planning your runs: if my center cannot neutralize that line of center defender, whether it's a nose, because a lot of times if you go against a 0 nose, he's a dude. I mean, if you've got a big 300-pounder that your center can't win on by himself, he has to be considered a +1 player to both sides. Okay, same for this linebacker. If this middle linebacker that's on this line of center is really good, maybe he's a Ray Lewis guy, and as soon as he sees run action, he's fitting that gap. There's no way that center can reach and get to him. We have to include him as a +1 to both sides. So we have to figure out a scheme strategy to hold him or to make him stay on one side and attack the other. So that's some of the conversations you need to answer, questions you need to ask yourself and answer if you see a player on the center line, or if there's not, how can we use our center post snap to gain the man advantage? Does that answer your question and make sense?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, you can't have it both ways, right? Like, your center can't be your +1, but then you can't ever say the defense can't get that +1.
Yeah, and I think once we kind of defined that and really sat down and talked about that, it really cleaned up and it really confirmed, hey, this play's going to work. This play's going to be solid. Or, hey, this is not going to hold up. There's no way our center this week can handle that 300-pound nose by himself. So we're going to have to treat this nose as a 2-gap player, a +1 to each side. So that maybe will change the type of run you use against that particular defense. Any other questions on calculating man advantage?
No, that was the only one I had, Coach.
Okay, so if we phase this out, the first thing we'll do is we'll draw the halo up to a formation, we'll identify the bubbles of space, and then we'll kind of pencil in, okay, is there any plays that I can use to immediately attack the bubbles of space? Usually the bubbles are going to be outside the run box. So what RPO can I attach to a run, or what 3 or 5-step concept or play action can I use to attack these bubbles? So we'll kind of pencil those in. And then we'll go inside the run box. Okay, they're +1 to both sides. How do we neutralize this or gain the man advantage back and create a bubble? That's kind of the 2 first steps that we'll undergo when we're game planning on a weekend. All right, next phase of this is I'm going to take you kind of on, let's say you're in the middle of a season, and let's say you've just broken down your previous game from the Friday night, you're on Saturday. The first thing we'll do as a staff is we're going to sit down and we're going to input our data of the scout film that we've received from an opponent. So, most teams do this. You might use Huddle Assist and send it in and get it back. We'll go in, fill out the coverages and formations, blitzes. And once we get that information compiled, we're going to break down the defense formationally and try to find what their base front and coverage is to those formations. So before I had this process with the R4, I would try to write the whole Bible in 2 days, on Saturday, Sunday, and that was very tough. I mean, you'd be by mid-season and playoffs roll around, you're sleep deprived, you're stressed out. It was really, really confusing. And then trying to explain the whole game plan to the players on Monday was overwhelming. So all we focus on now is just getting what we call our rhythm plays, and I'll show you how we break that down. But I want the rhythm looks for the defense, and a rhythm look for me is what's their base front and coverage to a formation, and I'm looking at specific spots on the field. I want to break down just first and second down only. We take third downs out, we take red zone out, we take goal line out, we take backed up out. So we're looking for open field between the 20s, first and second down looks. So hopefully we're breaking down a defense that's going against the offense that runs formations like us in a perfect world. The challenge is when you're breaking down a defense that's playing a wing T team and you're a spread team, right? And we've all been there. Or maybe it's week 0 or 1 and you have no film of this defense. So let's talk about a perfect world first. In a perfect world, you're going to have some formations that you run, and you're going to have at least 1 or 2 games. Okay, so in a perfect world, we are going to divide up formations within our staff, depending on how big your staff is. So I take all the spread 11 personnel formations. And what I'm looking for, these are all the 2x2 spread formations. So we call it spread and lead. And so I'm going to do a sort and organize. You'll see all these are first and second down in the open field between the 20s. This is right on the 20, so we still use this in the base look. And what I'm looking for, if you see the defensive front, is I'm just looking for patterns. And this team was a even front team. You can see they ran an over front, which we call 31, a 3 and a 1. And so you can see their base front is playing over. And then they had 3 snaps where they slid the over front strong and played kind of an odd look out of it. We call that 30. So we have kind of a 3 technique and a 0. Okay, and so so we had 3 snaps of what we call 30 and 5 snaps here of over 31. Okay, and then we look at the coverage. We had most of the snaps what we call cover 6, which is a split field coverage, so quarter, and a half, cover 2, and then they just had 2 snaps of just standard quarters. Okay, so what I can learn from that is their base front is going to be an over, their base coverage is cover 6. All right, and that's what we're looking for, is looking for those consistent patterns. Right, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that into a sheet of paper that's organized with a halo, and that's where I start my game planning process. So I'm going to show you that grid here. Okay, so here's the grid. Okay, so I'm going to take those looks and I'm going to grid those into what we call an R4 grid. The R4 grid, okay, has the halo already pre-drawn. Okay, and I'm going to just draw in my formation. So this is lead formation. That means the tight end's left, and we're in a spread to a 2x2 11 personnel formation. All right, and I'm going to draw that over front. So there's a 3. They're playing a 1-5. They played a head up 6 to the tight end. Okay, they played cover 6, which was quarter to the field, and cover 2 to the boundary. Okay, and that gives me the base look. I'm going to put the numbers of the players there because we're going to do a grading of the personnel. That's what we do on Sunday, and that's a different talk. But that gives me their base front and coverage for that look on open field, first and second down. Now, this grid below the formation, okay, is divided up into 4 compartments. So we have a rhythm column, a read, a rush, and a release column. These columns are basically creating a if-then network, okay? And that's I think what the best play callers and the best offensive systems have naturally built in within them. So they have answers that are pre-planned. And so this gives me the ability to generate that week in and week out and communicate it to my staff and players and to install and teach it in phases. Okay, so what's the rhythm column for us? The rhythm column are the best plays that we decide to use against that opponent's base front and coverage look. So as long as they stay in that base look, and we've graded the personnel correctly, we should not have to call any other play. This play should hold up 4 or 5 times a game. That's the goal. So I've got to establish my rhythm plays. So what's a rhythm? What are the type of plays I can call in football? Well, you can run or pass, right? We can run or pass. Okay, so you can run strong, you can run weak, you can throw a quick game, you can throw a 5-step. Okay, now what about RPOs? RPOs are a hybrid. Those are included in here. Play actions or bootlegs, those are a hybrid. Those are in there as well. But just from a standard, just baseline offensive play call, we can run or pass, and the primary runs, so I can run strong or weak, and I can throw a quick concept or a 5-step concept. So that's what I have at my disposal. So I want to see what are my best strong, weak 3 or 5-step that I can run against the base look. Now, I might have certain formations for particular years where I can't have a good look against a particular opponent. That's fine. Okay, but I know now at a maximum what I have at my disposal. Okay, any questions on just the layup of the layout of that grid?
No, that's. Do you ever go other hash or keep it in the middle, or is there a particular reason why this was on the left hash?
Yeah, great question. So here in a moment, I'll show you our play call sheet. But really, in high school, I think about 85 to 87% of your snaps are on a hash. Okay, you average, if you look at your clips, you're going to average around 10 to 12 plays a game in the middle of the field. So we game plan middle of the field separately. Okay, so I have a segment on my play sheet that's the middle of the field. So that's a whole different deal. So I will once I draw the base game plan from a hash perspective, I will then go back and say, okay, if I'm in the middle of the field, here's the formation and concepts we're going to run. Okay, because when I'm in the middle of the field, I have equal space to each side. So there's certain formations and concepts that are going to be more favorable there. So I want to take advantage of those when I'm there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally.
Okay, so we're gonna most of our game plan, our base game plan is gonna be drawn from a hash perspective. Okay, so whatever I do on the left hash on the play sheet, we just flip it and put it on the right hash. Okay, so that'll be mirrored. All right. Okay, any other questions on just the layout of that grid?
No, good, coach.
Okay, all right. So again, just kind of referring back, you see the man advantage is drawn to each side of the space. So I talked about man advantage in the run box. There's man advantage here to the strong side of run space. Right? They had a bubble here. They played this safety above the hard deck in his cover 2 type technique. So there's a bubble there. So again, as a coach, I got to ask myself, okay, why are they going to give me a bubble strong? All right. And as you got into the accelerator grades, as we started to grade the personnel, what we found was, and I'll kind of just introduce this as well. Again, this is a whole other topic, but when we grade personnel in the run box, there's 4 weapons. Okay. There's penetration. All right. There's a pin, which you may call it the force player. We call it the pin player. We try to use the same letters to help us remember and have word association. So penetration, pin. Plug is the play side linebacker. So if the run is strong, this linebacker is a plugger. So we got to grade how well he plugs. And then the backside inside linebacker is the pursuit player. Okay, so any backside second or third level player is a pursuit player. So I got to grade those 4 weapons. So if a defense stops a run to a particular side of space, they have succeeded in one or more of those weapons. They have one on penetration, they have one on pin, they have one on plug, or one on pursuit. So I got to neutralize those 4 weapons to have a good run. All right, so that's what we're grading. And what we found is when we graded this particular defense, number 5, okay, had positive penetration on double teams. Okay, so if we're going to double 5, okay, and work back to 47, anytime that number 5 was double teamed, he was able to get across the line of scrimmage. Okay, so that is probably a reason why they're going to go ahead and leave that bubble of space there. Now they can gain man advantage, okay, to the run space to the right and also to the route space to the right and left. Okay, so again, you have to ask yourself the question. So again, how would we take that into our game planning process? Well, does our left tackle and left guard, are they better than the team we were breaking down? Can we neutralize that penetration grade? If we can, then we can run strong. Okay, we also found that number 33, when he was base blocked by a tight end, he was a positive pin player. Okay, he's the pin player. He's the force guy. He was actually out here in D gap post snap, and he was able to successfully pin that D gap on base blocks. And so we have to then again ask, can our tight end, okay, because we're breaking down against another tight end, can our tight end neutralize that? And so that's the conversations we have to finally put the stamp of approval on if that play is going to work or not. Okay, this helped us be a lot more efficient in our play calling once we understood and we started grading the personnel ability of defenders. Okay, so any questions on how we take that bubble that's available and how we try to confirm if it's going to hold up and stay there?
Did you find it hard to, I guess, get outside of getting into the game? Because obviously, once you get in the game, you gotta throw it out there to see if you're correct, right? And that's you talk about it in your book. Um, but unless you have a comparable opponent, do you find it difficult sometimes to get a real good read on whether, like you said, number five, was he splitting that double team because the team they were going against wasn't all that good, or was it because number five was a dude?
Yeah, great question. I mean, great question, and that leads me into the next phase. So let's use this next slide to explain and answer that question here. Okay, so what I'm doing on the game plan is once I get the base front and coverage, okay, I have it all diagrammed here. I got the film to the left of me. I got this in front of me on paper. Okay, and I'm going to now, okay, ask myself the question, okay, what's the best run strong that I can run here against this opponent? Now, remember, at this point on Sunday, I also have the accelerator grades of these defenders. So I have number five as a positive penetrator. All right, that means that he had positive penetration, and I have the types of run blocks he was positive on. So I have, okay, every double team he was positive. Okay, every down block he was positive. Okay, so that allows me to ask a question. So what we're looking at here is, and to your question, is we're not going to know on Sunday if our left guard and tackle can handle that guy. Okay, we're not going to know with 100% certainty. So what do? In the game, we call this play. Okay, so for example, we decided to carry in this one back power play. All right, so we're going to block the center back. We're going to get a deuce. All right, on the 3 technique, back to the Mike 47. We're going to base our tight end with 33. Okay, and then we're going to pull our guard for number 3. All right, and as long as we can, our players are better, right? That play is going to work. Okay, so problem is probability based. I don't know if our players are as good or better as what I was breaking down. So I want to call this in the first series of the game. So what we're going to have on our play call sheet is a list of questions, essentially through the grid, that I have to get answered early. And this was a huge momentum shift for me as a play caller. And this is the difference between winning and losing big games, in my opinion. It comes down to eliminating 5 bad play calls a game. Okay, before we had this process, all right, I would call this one back power play 3 times, and let's say it got stuffed all 3 times before I realized, okay, we can't run this. Now I can call it 1 time, and I know what to look for, right? I know that, I mean, we even have our coaches assigned to it. We have a list in our meetings. We say, okay, we have the coaches, okay, we run 7 base here. That's our word for one back power left. We run 7 base. Coach Greenwood, you're watching the double team. All right, Coach Ulibarri, you're watching the tight end on the base block. And they are giving me immediate feedback. Hey, we're good. We can double this guy. Or, hey, we're good. We're good on the base block. Roll it again, okay? Or, hey, we're not good. This guy's a dude. All right, so it allows me, okay, this one's off the list. And now, instead of calling that play 2 more times, which I'm sure all of us have been in that situation, right? And I've been there too. I can now call 2 better plays. And that starts to add up over the game because you're doing this, okay, with everything. So you're buying back bad play calls. And that, to me, is what our job is as coaches, is to put our players in the best situation possible. And ultimately, it's up to them to execute. The nights I don't sleep good now are when I know I didn't put my players in a good situation. I put them against matchups that they physically can't win. And those type of sleepless nights don't happen anymore. We lose games, but it simply comes down to they were better than us. But as coaches, we did our job. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, Coach. And that's going to happen, right? You're going to come up against teams that are just simply better than you, and that's the way cookie crumbles sometimes. Like
Exactly. And I think coaching is so much more fun for me now because at the end of the day, we've empowered all our coaches to see the field the same. And everyone, if the game plan is just not in my head, I now have the ability to teach and communicate it where everyone can see it the same way and we're all working from the same mind's eye. And we all can sit down on Saturday and Sunday and walk out of that game plan room and know, okay, hey, we have put our kids in the best possible situation. We've graded the personnel. We do have maybe some questions that won't get answered Friday, but we're going to answer those in the first couple series. And at the end of the day, it's up to them to go execute. So I think that's the benefit of the system. All right, so just moving on, and so once I establish, so I like this, okay, as a strong side run. Now, what we'll do to further enhance a strong side run is we'll look out to bubbles on the perimeter. So here I've got a bubble of space on the perimeter. There's only one defender for 2 immediate threats below the hard deck. So what route attachment or screen can I attach to this one back power to attack this bubble? So in this particular game, we decided to use a kind of a smoke screen we call fire. Fire's smoke screen to the right, and we attach that to one back power, that particular game plan. So now we can attack 2 bubbles, and we can tell our quarterback to read this dog linebacker. So fire was attached to that run. So that's kind of how we bring RPOs into the grid. Okay. So again, that's a solid play as long as our personnel grading holds up and our quarterback can make that throw. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. All right. So then we'll just go down the rhythm column. So again, as a coach, I need to determine, is there any kind of weak side run that I can run against this opponent, against this formation? Now, there might be some game. You might have a year where you don't have any weak side runs to a particular formation, or maybe your line to that right side is not as good as the defense you're going against. So you might leave this blank. That's fine. It's just, if you need it, it's there. So as I look to this quadrant here, okay, they have the man advantage to the right. There is no bubble. So I got to create a bubble. So I got to use fake flow or flood. So again, I drew the back end pistol here, just kind of a default. The back would be offset to the right if we were working that 7 base. And then on this weak side run, I've got to create a bubble. So how can I do that? Well, fake flow or flood. Okay, so flood, all right, is using a center line defender, quarterback or tailback. So the tailback usually I don't use the tailback as a blocker. Well, to me, a flood scheme is using the tailback as a lead blocker, right? And using the quarterback as a run threat. So if I run quarterback ISO weak and get an ace combination to the will and just base out the 5 technique, I now create a bubble because I added a blocker that most defenses sometimes don't treat, okay, into that side of space. So using the quarterback in the run gives you the +1. Okay, so that's why a lot of good defensive coordinators I've heard in today's modern game of football, you always got to treat the quarterback as a run threat. I mean, most teams now have evolved to that where the quarterback is a runner, he's a +1 player. So that's how you kind of inverse it from the defensive side. So now that's a great weak side run if I in fact use that play. I can further enhance that play by running a stick with the slot to attack this bubble, and maybe I just run this receiver off. So now I've created a pass run option, a PRO. So we're going to tell our quarterback, hey, I want you to catch the ball and read the dog, all right? If he stays on the apex or comes in, throw the stick. If he goes out, then you now run quarterback, weak side ISO, tailbacks lead draw. Okay, great concept, very tough. So again, we call that Q dragon. That's code for Q draw. Jag is our code for the stick out here. Okay, so that's how we code that play. All right. So again, it's not about the plays here. I mean, everybody runs different plays, but it's about, okay, what's the mental process we use as a staff to get to the best play? So our rhythm plays are our best plays against that base front coverage. Any questions on how we game plan kind of strong and weak side runs?
No, it's good. I used this year, and it made life so much easier.
That's the goal, man. We want to get you in and out of the room, gets the stress off your heart, and let you enjoy the game. So next thing we'll go to is I'll look down here, and okay, do I have a 3-step, a quick game concept that I like? A lot of coaches today, they use RPOs as their quick game, so you may not have a 3-step passing game in your offense. That's fine. Don't put anything there. For us, we do run a lot of hybrid 3-step. What I mean by that is we'll use a quick game concept to one side and have some sort of intermediate route attachment backside. So for example, this is an example of that. There's a bubble of space out here. So again, that's what drives my decision making. So what quick game concept can I use to attack this bubble of space? So we'll run just our double slant concept. So I got a slant and I got a fin is our double slant concept. We call it Saint. So I like Saint there, as long as they stay in quarters. Mm-hmm. And then on the back side, there's a bubble of vertical space in the boundary hole tube. So I'm going to run our vertical switch read concept. We call it Philly. Okay. And so I can get my tight end in that bubble of space. So I'm going to rhythm Saint from a quarterback progression standpoint. And if that's capped, if something changes post snap, okay, then I can reset and I can come backside to Philly and find my best read route. And my tailback would be a check release rush to the flat. Okay, so that's called Saint Philly. All right, so that's an example of how we do that. The other thing about this, when you're game planning pass concepts, is the halo allows you to put your defensive coordinator hat on. So, for example, if we're running Saint Philly and they're in cover 6, they're not just going to let me hammer this fin route all night. So what I got to do is, okay, what coverage change could they possibly make here to take that away? Because defenses are going to adjust, and you might not have these adjustments on film. Okay, so what are they going to do to take that bubble away? Well, one thing they could do is just rotate the safety down and take these 2 bubbles away with cover 3. All right, so again, the defense is going to move coverage to take away pre-existing bubbles, post-snap or pre-snap. So what that allows me to do is now teach my quarterback, hey, here's a possible scenario they're going to do to take Saint away. So when you see this rotation, you need to come back immediately to Philly. And now if they move these defenders, right, and rotate to cover 3, there's going to be a bubble of space in the seam here. So now we can look for the seam, right? Or it could still be the vertical switch to the fade, depending on how this corner plays it on the rotation. Does that make sense? That's just a little side note there, that how we use the halo to kind of predict what adjustments will be. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but it's a very helpful tool, and it allows you to drive the conversations with your staff faster in the game plan process.
No, and truthfully, it helped me with my quarterbacks as well, with saying, hey, this is where they normally line up, and this is what you might see. Just kind of giving them a little bit more of that picture. So getting into Friday, it's not a shock when they move, right? Because it's not a stagnant game. It's not just a bunch of dudes as statues sitting there. They're moving around. You're going to get a different look most likely. And if you're in an area like we are, where we're throwing the ball a bunch and most people don't, all of a sudden you're going to see something slightly different than what we saw in film. So.
Yeah, Dylan, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but before I had this and the ability to explain it like that, any kind of post-snap rotation or movement would melt my quarterback's freaking brain. I mean, he just straight locked down, right? Yeah. And so in these frames of reference and having these conversations, like you said, and being able to teach it through the halo, really eliminates that. I don't have that hardly anymore. All right, so just moving on. So again, that drives our decision for the quick game. And then if we're like an intermediate pass-based team, or I had an intermediate concept I want to game plan, I would use the same process for that. So for example, a lot of times coaches will ask me, well, how many pass concepts do you take into a game, and what determines what concepts you call our game plan? And so this is how I do it. So I look at the halo, I look at the base coverage in front. And so I see the bubbles there. Well, in my mind, what concepts do I have in our offense that particular year that I can overlay this look and attack those bubbles? I want to attack as many bubbles as possible. I want to get as many guys to attacking those bubbles as possible. So we have a concept we call Cooter, okay, off the same split, the same formation, where the number 2 receiver runs a rhythm corner, okay, and then the number 1 receiver runs a glance post underneath it. Okay, kind of an inverse of scissors, okay? And so that glance route gets into the middle of the field bubble. So I like that. What I noticed was this safety on the film, and that's another thing about the halo, is it allows you to get real specific about their alignment. So anytime the number 2 receiver was inside the hash, this safety would line up outside leverage. So that's drawn here. So he's in an outside leverage position to cap the corner out. Okay, well, good. We'll use that against you now and run Cooter and attack the middle field bubble underneath it. Okay, on the backside of Cooter, we have a default backside concept called Cobra, and Cobra stands for corner shallow. Okay, and so now if you look at the Cobra concept, the corner gets into this bubble in cover 2, and the shallow comes all the way across and gets in this bubble of the field. So what you'll notice is of the 3 bubbles that exist in the pass space, this concept attacks all 3. And that kind of what confirms that this place is sound. Okay. Now, again, I have to determine, can my protection hold up? all right, to allow this to develop. All right, that goes back into that accelerator grade process again. But if my protection can hold up, my quarterback can make these throws. This concept will work more than one time a game as long as they stay in this particular look. So that's how we decide what our rhythm plays are. And again, our rhythm plays are our best play that are going to hold up consistently time over time. And so what I'm looking for is, can I call this play 3 to 5 times a game as long as they stay in the same look? That's kind of what defines a rhythm play for me. And I should never have to move out of any other play as long as they stay the same and our personnel grades have matched up. So that's the goal for me on Sunday, is to walk out of the film room on Sunday and have all of my rhythm formations and plays illustrated, and that determines our Monday practice. So our rhythm plays and rhythm formations, game play, or script our Monday practice, and it also drives my install meeting with my players. So now I can sit them down and say, show them the grids, and now say, and easily tell the story. Hey guys, okay, they're gonna be in base 31, cover 6. You see there's a bubble of space strong. We're gonna run 7 base 5 here. Now the concern is, okay, I'm talking to our tight end. Hey, Joey, 33 is a positive pin player. Can you handle him? Because if you can't, there's no bubble here, we're screwed. And I can kind of challenge him. I can say all week, this play's not gonna work if you can't handle that guy. And so it allows me to kind of call out and paint the picture of the story. I can tell my left tackle and guard, I can challenge him on number 5. This guy hasn't been double teamed all year. All right. Can you hold up? And so it paints the picture, tells the story. And so I can get easily through these 4 plays and explain the why, paint the mental picture. And now we go out in the field and practice it. Man, it was a lot more efficient for me. I mean, before I was really bad at my install meetings. Now we're a lot more efficient. And we're a lot more efficient because I don't have to do it all. I can break my coaches out into their rooms and they can distill the game plan down easily because we're all communicating and seeing space the same. Whereas before, I felt like I had to drive the meeting for all 11 players because I had no language and process to get everybody on the same page. And so I think that's the benefit of R4. Any questions about how we game plan the rhythm plays and how we start that process?
No, and just kind of go off that, I think it also gave the offensive line like an idea, because your scout team is nowhere near what they're going to see on Friday night, but it gives them that mental picture of this is what that kid's going to be doing, as opposed to sometimes you got that 5'4" kid that's really great at fundraising, that's 120 pounds, that's playing D tackle because you needed a body to play D tackle, that they're picking up and putting 100 yards downfield. Well, that's not realistic on Friday night, right?
Right. And I've been at big school, the biggest schools in the state. I've been at some of the smallest schools. I've coached in the 2 different paradigms. And if you're at a school, what we do when we see that, let's say we got number 5 who's a dude. I might need to borrow our best defensive tackle, for 2 or 3 plays or 5 plays during the week, and just to give us that look and feel. Or maybe I need to do a half line drill and bring my best offensive lineman over there and get that left guard and tackle some work, on that guy. So that's another thing you can do when you have those high priority threats that are going to threaten that play, and you want to give your guys kind of a game like realistic rep through the week. I think that's something you need to look at.
Yeah, and with this process, you actually get an idea of what that's going to look like, as opposed to, hey, I think 5's pretty good.
Right.
I think 33, we could handle him.
Yeah.
This, it gives you concrete information. That's awesome.
Yeah. Our game plans meetings before this would be like, okay, we sit down as a staff. Okay, number 2's really good. He's a dude. 51's a dude. Okay, well, what does that mean?
Right.
I mean, like, we just got to stay away from him because that's not good. That's
Right.
what we want. So I think the thing about what you do is I can't get into the accelerator grades. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But when you get into the accelerator grades, what you start to discover is that for every strength, there's a weakness. And just like in anything in life, right? I mean, your strengths as a person can also be perceived and come across as and be weaknesses. And so the same on the football field. And I think that's another thing that R4 does when you get into the accelerator grades. It helps you as a coach understand, hey, this guy's a positive penetrator, but he's not really good at outside or horizontal run schemes. He's weak, at running, down the line. Does that make sense? So there's kind of a weakness for he's positive with vertical penetration, but horizontal, what we call horizontal penetration, meaning that his ability to pursue down the line is negative.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps drive, what best run play against that guy's going to work.
No, totally agree.
All right. So then, real quickly, just so the next thing that we'll do from that is we'll go to the read column. Okay. And in the R4 grid, the read column are the most anticipated adjustments that the defense is going to make. And this is probably the area as a young play caller and game planner that I would get lost in. This is where you chase rabbit trails, right? I mean, you're chasing ghosts. So you spend 5 hours watching film, you come out, you have, a whole legal pad full of notes and answers, and you try to have everything answered that could possibly go wrong. So I needed this guardrail, okay? And what we've learned is how to prioritize, okay, the most common threat to the rhythm play. And I think that's really what you got to figure out and you got to come to grips with as a coach is, listen, we can't have the answer for everything that could go wrong. We got to prioritize it. So, for example, in this particular game, the most common anticipated adjustment, because the defense is not just going to stay in something if you're beating them. So they can change the coverage, they can change the front, they can blitz, they can stunt. I mean, there's different weapons they have, right? So we got to use it. What's the weapon they're going to use the most? And again, you got to prioritize it. All right, so you're going to have to. This is where you watch film, and you're just going to have to come to grips with the staff. Okay, we think this is what it is, and move on. All right, so in this particular game, their most anticipated adjustment was slanting their line strong and playing like this zero technique with the nose, sliding their end from a 5 to a 4-eye, and playing kind of a hybrid odd front out of an even front personnel. Okay, and why would they do that? Well, if you look at it, okay, if we're working one back power and they bump the line strong, this 3 technique is now in a 4-eye, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and this pin player is now outside in what we call a 7 technique, and now the nose is over the center. So if we run our one back power, now we have to double the nose to 47, okay, which is not as a favorable advantage of an angle to get 47 because he's going to be over quick on pursuit. And now the dude number 5 is on a down block. He's blocked with a single defender. Okay, so that is probably why they're doing this. Okay, because again, they know their weakness is better than you. So as a staff, we have to determine, is our one back power play still going to hold up against this? That's what we got to decide. Well, maybe it will. Then you don't need another replay, right? You don't need a replay there. But maybe it won't. So what's our answer? And this is where you got to just decide, okay, what's our best answer? So in this particular game, the highest priority threat out of this look, we were really worried about 33. We felt that our left tackle was really good. He was a Division I guy. We felt our tackle, okay, could handle this guy still on a down block if they slant or shift to this odd front. But we weren't sure if our tight end could handle 33. So what we did is we made an adjustment. Okay, here's our read answer. We went to a heavy set, and we would take our right tackle and move him over to tight end. So this is a heavy set where we have our right and left tackle on the same side, and now our tight end was weak as the tackle position. Okay, and we felt our right tackle could handle 33. Okay, so again, that's our answer. Okay? There's a million answers you could come up with. All right, the goal is to find the best answer based on your personnel and your scheme that you have. Put that play in there and move on. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and to have that answer going into the game as opposed to in the 30 seconds or, a quick timeout, if that's, forcing yourself to take a timeout, having this pregame is huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, what this does, read plays are on Tuesday for us. Okay. So it gives me another day to break down and kind of get to that next layer of play calling, if that makes sense. Because that's what I found I needed during the season was, I need more time. Well, the rhythm plays are put to bed. Now I got Monday after we kind of go out and practice Monday night. I got Tuesday during the day before practice to, okay, here's our best read play to protect this. And so read plays are Tuesday. Now, I don't know, coaches are at different levels of schools. Now with the numbers of football diminishing, we got more players going both ways these days, mm-hmm. right? Very rarely do you have, 11 on offense, full-time, 11 on defense. If you're in college, you got that, great, that's awesome. High school, not the reality we live in. So we had to start changing our schedule to a more offensive emphasis day and defensive emphasis so we could share players. Well, Monday is offensive day for us. So we get an hour and 20 minutes on Monday. We can get our rhythm plays in. That's the majority of our play call sheet, right? Well, read plays are reduced. I mean, we don't need a lot of answers if we did a good job game planning rhythm plays, right? And if our rhythm plays don't hold up, then we're not going to win anyway. I mean, they're just better, right? We already talked about that, okay? So my answers, my read counters are going to be a shorter list of protectors. So on Tuesday, we only have offense for 40 minutes with our starters. So having this setup allow me to get my replays in easily on Tuesday and game plan those and feel a lot better about the practice plan. Any questions on read plays?
No.
Okay, again, we may not have answers for every rhythm play with a read. It's just if there is a certain play like this one back power, we weren't sure if our personnel could hold up. So that's why we needed kind of an insurance policy or protector read play in it, that particular game plan. Okay, rush plays. Okay, rush plays. All right, what's the rush column for? So the rush column are plays that are the best answer against anticipated pressure or an overload of numbers. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to go back to your huddle breakdown and you want to look at your blitz column, and is there any blitzes, okay, that they like to bring on first and second down against those formations? So if there is, we need to have an answer potentially for that blitz. Now, if our rhythm play holds up against the blitz, we won't need a rush play for that. So for example, in this one, let's say we're running this one back power strong, like we've been talking about, okay, with the fire screen out here, all right, okay, that's the RPO. Well, if you look here, we're pulling the guard, okay, on this play. The tackle has got to be on, if they're in that odd front, it's got to be on the 4 technique. If their ends out there and they're bringing the dog, they're probably spiking the end, so the tackle's locked on. So we're unprotected with any dog pressure. Okay, we're unprotected on that RPO. I don't like unprotected RPOs for my quarterback. So what we did is we did a different RPO. Okay, if we start to see or anticipate this dog pressure, we used a different RPO. Okay, and what we used is our outside zone RPO. So our outside zone RPO is this. We call it Ole. That's outside zone left. So our tight end's still going to base the 6. Okay, we're going to work an outside zone double to 3. Okay, our center's going to base, okay, the nose. All right, he's going to base the nose. Now, if they were still in their even front, okay, that center, okay, would work with the left guard on the 3, work up, and the tackle and tight end work a combo up. So based on the front, they would change kind of their blocking scheme. But on this particular RPO, from the center over, they're blocking outside zone. From the center backside, they are blocking number 1 and 2 most dangerous. So the right guard would block the 4 technique. That's number 1 most dangerous on the line of scrimmage. The right tackle is going to work out to number 2. So now we run a protected RPO. Right? We protect that C gap. Okay, that's called Ole. Now, on this particular RPO, we're reading the Mike linebacker. So if the running back's offset, right? So if that Mike linebacker pursues over the line of center, we're going to pull and we're going to pop, okay, double slant. All right. If the Mike blitzes or holds, then we give outside zone. And now we got numbers. Okay. So we felt that was the best, okay, rush play for us if we start to see pressure. Also, that rush play is really good if our tight end can't handle number 33 on a base block. There's a weakness for every strength. Maybe our tight end, he's a little lighter in the shorts, but he's more athletic, could hook this guy on an outside zone reach. So these 2 plays now could be interchanged during a game. If we can't run 7 base fire, maybe we need to just mark that out and just go to our outside zone RPO. Okay, so that's kind of the if-then sequence of play. So we're if-then, and we're able to communicate that and game plan and practice that out. So does that make sense on how we define and game plan rush plays?
Yeah, and then for like a 5-step for your rush play, what would that kind of look like? Because obviously a quick game, a 3-step, a rush play, most of them are going to be gone before that blitz gets there. But for your 5-step, how would that look, I guess?
Great question, Dylan. So let's say we're working this Cooter play, right? That's our rhythm play, okay? All right. And so, like, we're in the game plan process. So, again, rush plays, I have until Wednesday to have those solidified in the game plan. So, again, and this is why I need more time. I need to filter through, okay, what are the blitzes? What are the pressures? What's the overloads or the coverage rotations that'll overload numbers to a side? They're going to give me problems. And so it gives me an extra, another additional day. So let's say I'm studying Cougar, Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday after practice. Okay. And I'm asking myself, okay, if they bring this, dog pressure, maybe my rush needs to be a different protection. If my base protection can't hold up, maybe I need to go to a full slide. Maybe I don't want my tailback on that guy. Maybe I need to call a screen here or a draw. Now, another thing that coaches need to understand is that pressure is not always blitzes, right? Pressure in the passing game is dropping 8 defenders into space. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pressure. I mean, you think of 7-on-7, you're playing an odd team, right? And they're not playing 7-on-7.
Right.
They're playing 8-on-7, right? And it's and you get frustrated as a coach because there's no space out there. That's pressure. And so as a coach, I got to ask myself, if their answer is to drop 8 and place pressure and take these Cougar spaces away because they're dropping all these guys into undercovered space and, playing maybe quarters deep or whatever, right? What's my answer? Quarterback draw, tailback screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so those are the type of plays that go. There should be screens, draws, protection adjustments would be those answers that would go in that rush for the passing game.
Gotcha.
All right, any other questions for the rush column? So again, rush column is our Wednesday practice. So Wednesday is a situational day. It's our blitz day. So we're working our red zone situations, our open field situations with the different blitzes we're expecting, our third downs. And so that gives me, again, a few more days to solidify that plan and teach it in those segments. All right, last day, and then we'll close for questions. Release. What's release day? What's release plays? Release plays, okay, could be a motion. It could be a motion out of that formation. It could be kind of a one-off play. It's an explosive play that we're setting up that's directly tied to the rhythm. Okay, so rhythm and release plays are connected together. So what I mean by that is this, okay? Release plays are also done on Monday, all right? As good, you'll see any good play caller, he's always going to break tendencies and he's going to set the defense up, right? So that's what your release play is. And usually these are game plans specifically for that opponent that week. They're going to be game plans so that you got to put them on Monday because usually it's kind of a one-off in your traditional base offense. So in this particular game, our rhythm play was 7 base with the fire screen, right? Okay, so again, what we're asking ourselves for the release play, if they stay in their base front and coverage, all right, and I'm throwing this fire screen out here, okay, and I'm getting 5-10 yards a clip, what's an action that's going to occur within these defenders, all right, if we start to hit this? Well, you're going to start to see this corner flying up hard, right? This safety is going to start flying up hard. Well, we can use that anticipated action if we're any good at all at hitting this against him. And so we can have the pre-planned weapon ready to roll and worked on through the week. So our weapon is working, the old stock and go. Okay, we go, kind of off that pump fake off of the fire play. So we call that torch. All right, so that was our release play. So we can say, hey guys, Monday here. Hey, we're gonna work 7 base fire. Listen, if you guys can make this work, and we start to see this action, here's the shot play we're setting up. What this does is allows me as a coach to know what to look for. And also what I find out is the players will call this out before I can even get it out of my mouth. You're empowering your players to see this and they're ready for it. So this guy that's blocking for 3 plays in a row, that's given his all so this now screen guy can get his, he knows, okay, to do that because that's going to set up his reward. All right. So again, this just allowed me to just better organize our shot plays and really teach those in a better way. So that's what the release column is. Any questions on that, Coach?
And then same thing, you're not going to have a release call for every single strong run, weak run, 3-step and 5-step.
Yeah, correct. So again, we're going to try to find our 4 and 5 best explosive, because again, you're trying to set these up. So you only have like 65, 70 snaps a game.
Right.
Okay. So we've got to, work through those snaps. And so thinking that, if this is going to be a really sound play for us and we can run this 3 to 4 times, if you had that for, 2 other plays, I mean, you're only going to have about 3 or 4, maybe 2 or 3 shots, if you think about it. So that helps me not take too many into the game. Right. Yeah. And before I'd have like, here's 12 shot plays. Then we're going to score 187 points against this team. Right. It all work. Right. Okay. So now it's more realistic. And I think that's the key is to be as efficient as possible with your game plan. Okay. So last thing here, and I'll kind of close for questions. Oh, wait. So once that's one formation. Okay. And understand we're doing this for multiple formations. So it kind of depends on what your offense is to determine how many you're going to take into a game. So I know some teams are just all 10 personnel based. So if you're just like an air raid team and you just run trips in 2x2, then you're probably going to have more plays filled in your grids. If you're only running 2 formations a game, maybe it's 2x2 trips and empty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe you're an 11 personnel team and you run, 3 to 4 formations out of 11 personnel. You're going to have 4 of these grids as your base of your game plan. Maybe you run some 21. Okay. So I need a play call sheet that can operate within these different types of offenses. All right. The fewer formations I do, the more plays I'll have on a grid. The more formations I do, the less I'll have. So I needed a way to kind of organize, okay, what's my limits? How many do I need at a minimum? So we organize our play call sheet, okay, with these grids, and I think this is a really good tool. Now, you can probably see this, and it's real small. I'm gonna go from this wide focus view first, just to show you how this play call sheet is laid out, because it's different than a traditional play call sheet. The play call sheet I used early on in my career was down and distance based. Meaning that, I had my 1st and 10 plays, had my openers, had my second, my blitz calls, here's my 3rd down, and so I was living in the play sheet during the game situationally based on down and distance, and I wasn't living in the reality of what I'm seeing on the field. My eyes are on the sheet instead of on the field. And so I was really good at openers. I mean, we can all script, 10 openers that are going to be good, but after that, I'm like, well, crap, now what?
Right.
Because I'm not reading the reality. I don't have that stuff. So what we do, this really helps me play the game before it's been played by using the play call sheet I have here. So what we do is you'll see this is the left hash section, okay? And I'm going to highlight here, this is the right hash section, okay? So those are formational grids there. This is the middle of the field. So there's not a lot of plays in the middle of the field because I'm only there 10 to 12 times a game. Now, let's go to the left hash. This quadrant in the upper left-hand corner contains 4 of those formational grids. So I'm going to zoom in here, okay? So we're going to zoom in. This is where 75 to 85% or 80% of the game plan is called for me. These are my rhythm formations. So you can see here, these formational grids, this is the grid that we just filled out together. I didn't get to the last play, but here's the 7 face fire, the quarterback stick draw, the Saint Philly. There's those plays that we just went over in the presentation, right? So that's going to be one formational grid for me. Now, I game planned 3 more formations out of 11 personnel. So that's where the majority of my play call sheet, all right, that's what I'm going to operate from. Now, really, I'm only operating from the rhythm column, right? I mean, these other ones are just answers based on anticipated adjustments. So, I mean, really, I'm looking at 4, 12, I got 15 plays, okay, that I'm working for. That if I've done my job and our staff has done our job, those plays should hold up. Now, if they adjust and we have issues, we have replays, right, for answers. And if they start bringing pressure, we have our rush plays, and then we have our shots. Okay, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this looks like a big monstrosity, but really it could fit on a note card. I mean, you look at Lincoln Riley, you look at those air raid guys, I mean, they're on a little thin piece of paper. These plays would fit on that. Does
right.
that make sense? Okay. All right. So now the beauty of it is all of this has been practiced through the week. It's been connected through the week. So in the games now, I don't even have to look at my sheet because I've scripted the practice in a rhythm read rush release format. I've taught it in a rhythm read rush release format. I've game planned it in a rhythm read rush release format. So my best games, I don't even look at the sheet. Okay. So this looks like a lot, but it's really a little. Okay. But it gives you versatility, all right, to do so much more. All Right now on the right hash, it's these same plays are just flipped, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if I went over to the right hash side, to be the same formations, just flip, same plays. Or maybe maybe that run play doesn't hold up as good to the right hash because maybe that guard and tackle to that side aren't as good as my other guard and tackle. Maybe I don't flip the line. So I just leave that play off. Right? That wouldn't be a rhythm play. Okay. So again, that's where I'm operating. Now, if I zoom out real quick, you can see that there's read. Okay. There's read formations here. What's read formations? Well, maybe you're a multi-personnel team. Maybe you do some 12 and 21. Okay. And this grid or this play sheet allows you to have space for those one-off formations or plays. So if you look, I might only have a quick game play out of this. I might only have a run and a play action shot. That's kind of those one-off. So, we've all been there. You're going against an opponent. Maybe you want to show a 21. Maybe you can run strong or weak side power, or ISO. That's going to be good. Okay, I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to set up a play action off of it. So it's not something I'm going to live out of, but if I need it, I have it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions on the read section? So you might not need any plays there, but if you need it, it's there for you to insert. Okay, our last section here is our rush section. So these are formations that we use for rush situations. So what would those be? Those would be like your third down and red zone situations where you're anticipating pressure. So we might use empty formation. Hey, third down, they're bringing a lot of pressure. Let's empty them out. So here's my 2 or 3 best plays for that situation. Or maybe in red zone, I want to be in this particular formation. Maybe it's a goal line package. That's a rush situation because they're overloading the box. So those formations are situational. Those would go there. So your situational formations that you're using just for specific moments in the game, maybe your 2-minute offense, that's where you would fit those. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, in the release section's the last section. Now, as a coach, I still need kind of that placeholder on my play call sheet for those specific pressure situations like third down or maybe red zone. I still need a place where my eyes can go because a lot of times those third down plays or those situational red zone plays are specific for that particular opponent, meaning that you're not running those every week. So maybe it sounds it's a little different off the tongue, or it's a motion or a shift. So I still have a release section on our play call sheet that's built for situations. So again, I have a goal line grid section that we place our goal line and 2-point plays in on the left hash. I have a red zone grid that I type in my formations and plays for those particular red zone situations on the hash. And understand these plays might already be listed in the rhythm grids. I'm just pulling them down here just so my eyes can go to that specific spot, even though I might already have them inserted somewhere else on the rhythm grid. I have our 2-minute section, and then I have our third down and distance section because third down is this, we got to win third down. And so maybe I have a concept that I have in a particular grid, but I want to add this motion or shift or something one-off. So that gives me a place to put those one-off plays down there. So again, having that built out allows me, to have a play call sheet that's structured based on the field and also structured based on my personnel in that if-then decision-making format. And once I had that, it allowed me now to not even have to look at it during a game. And that's where I felt that was better. Any questions on the play call sheet?
No, it's definitely makes it way easier. And like you said, third down, every play is supposed to be a home run, right? Like every play is supposed to go for 6. And third down creeps up on you sometimes, and you need to be able to get your eyes to a specific spot quickly. So it's nice to have them in
Correct.
a spot So.
Yes, absolutely. Really last thing, Coach, there's no more questions. Just, a lot of coaches ask, where can I go to learn more of this? Because we just talked a little over an hour here, and we can only really touch some of the high points. There's a lot more meat on the table. Are we back?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I don't know what happened. Glitch in the matrix.
Yeah.
So anyway, 2 books out on the website you can buy. Adapt or Die is more about the passing system of R4 and how we use and teach our quarterbacks and receivers how to use that if-then decision-making process to drive and find what open is on the field and passing game. What is open was released last April, and this is the game planning and play calling part that we just talked about here. So that'll give you a little deeper dive into what we just discussed. And if you want the full dive, we have all of these clinics and this teaching system online in a modular format. I think there's 75 modules right now that talk about game planning, play calling, its concepts, all the stuff we run. And we have a discount code going, and we've had this going since spring break, since we've been in this pandemic, so we just left it on. It's Spring Break 30. That gives you 30% discount on the individual or team system, so a very good deal going right now since we have this time to dive into that. So that's available for any guys out there that are interested. You can email me at r4system@gmail.com if you have any further questions, and I'll kind of leave it in your court there, Dylan, if you have anything else.
Yeah, no, all this stuff is great. Adapt or Die, What is Open. Blew through both those books. Phenomenal. I love I'm on your online systems. Love the videos. Love the modules. Go through them. Signed up last year. Went through them. Showed a couple of them to my quarterbacks. It helps them. You bring all the stuff from Adapt or Die and What is Open on there. You get so much on the R4 football system that it's well worth it, for sure.
Yeah, I think too, Dylan. I think the thing that coaches need to understand is this is not an offense; it's an operating system that works with any offense, and that's what I wanted to create. I didn't want to create an offense. I wanted to create something that accelerates whatever you run, because we all have different personnel, we all have different schemes that we like. So I think that's something that a lot of guys misunderstand about R4 is it's more of an operating system to accelerate what you do, not what you have to run.
Yeah, no, I talked to Nate Albaugh, the owner of Chief Pigskin, and he's like, I don't understand why you throw the ball so much, being an air raid guy. And I'm like, well, it's a system. It's the if-then, this is what I do. And he's like, oh, that's wing T. And I'm like, yeah, it's the same stuff. And R4 works just as well for wing T as it does for air raid or run and shoot or any of the other football systems. It's not just if you throw the ball.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Nate. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. This has been a blast, man. Thanks for all you guys that listened, and hope to meet you in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Dub. Thanks for doing this, and really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching another Chief Pigskin Home Clinic. Hit the like button to let us know that you're enjoying this content. Also subscribe so that not only do you get the new home clinics we're putting out there, but also our Film Fridays and 4 Quarters that comes out on Mondays. Plus, make sure you check us out on chiefpigskin.com and our online clinic for paid memberships. We have over 150 coaches clinics there that go in depth and a wide variety of different topics: offense, defense, and special teams. Thank you for watching.